Earlier this week, our sitting president issued executive orders to implement immigration reform. And of course, reflexively, the Republican leaders began accusing Mr. Obama of acting like an emperor or a king, not the president of a republic. Well, let's face it, Mr. Obama announced this mandate over the airwaves. He gave a wonderful speech. It was filled with compassion, benevolence. It would take a hard heart indeed to argue with any of the charitable words spoken. Taken out of context, Mr. Obama's speech was wonderful and praiseworthy. Context. You might be walking along the sand of a beautiful sunny beach and look out at the warm, calm ocean waters. There's a reef. It's teeming with beautiful tropical fish. Wouldn't it be a nice idea to go out and take a swim? However, if there were large, hungry sharks swimming among those beautiful schools of tropical fish, it might be wise to think it through before jumping in the water. Okay, so let's set aside Mr. Obama's sympathetic and compassionate speech and look at the whole action in context. This action comes just days after the midterm elections, just days after the people spoke and facilitated a landslide defeat of the radical leftist agenda that Obama and his comrades had been force-feeding the American people. Just days after Mr. Obama loudly boasted that he was ready to work with the new Republican majority. Hopeful, humble words they were indeed. Really? Ready to work with the new Republican majority? Did Mr. Obama call any Republican leaders to lunch with him at the White House to discuss this immigration issue? Did Obama seek to appeal to the new Republican leaders to work with him on immigration reform in the new Congress? Did Mr. Obama ask any of the new Republican leaders to review this executive order and offer suggestions? Let's be honest. This executive order didn't appear out of thin air. You don't really think he wrote this up in longhand last night just before he went to bed? You don't think that, do you? This bill was prepared. It was ready to go. Taken in context, this sure looks like a planned strategic move, not an impulsive attempt at compassion for the hardworking, disenfranchised, illegal alien population. Just days before, the Democrats took a serious whooping at the election box. There weren't even enough late returns from Chicago to save the Illinois governor's mansion for the Democrats. You know it was a landslide if they couldn't even fix the outcome of that race. Context. Take a look at the news reports following the midterms. Google it. You're going to find the New York Times, CNN, CBS, PBS, all of them. They were lamenting over the fact that the traditional Democratic voting bloc turnout was low. There's reports that young voters, black voters, urban voters all turned out in much lower numbers than in the 2012 general election. These reports suggest that turnout by these voting blocs is traditionally low in midterm elections and may have cost the Democrats the election. Context. Could it be that Mr. Obama feels a need to pump up yet another voting bloc to overcome this flaw in Democratic Party strategy? Liberal Democrats have long counted on youthful voters. It's been said that if you're not a liberal when you were 20, you may not have a heart. Of course, it follows up that if you're not a conservative by the time you're 40, you may not have a brain. Young voters didn't turn out in large enough numbers for Democrats in 2014. Context. Ever since Lyndon Johnson came to the realization that generous welfare benefits could capture black voters as a loyal bloc, liberal Democrats have counted on black voters. Lyndon sought to buy their votes with promises of a great society. Now, at that time, I found that concept to be inspiring, just, and long overdue. I still find that concept to be noble and proper. We have the ability to make this a great society. However, I now realize that at that time, it was little more than a Democratic Party strategy to buy the black vote. Context. President Johnson was an old school Southern Democrat. His colleagues included names like George Wallace, Lester Maddox, Robert Byrd. The list can go on. Now, if you don't know these names, look them up. Look at what they really stood for. History will easily show you that Lyndon sided closer to them than he did to the more compassionate Kennedys. If you think for a minute that those Southern Democrats saw the black population as anything more than a voting bloc, you need to go back and study your history again. Context. After the rejection of Obama's extreme leftist agenda in the 2014 midterms, it appears that the youth vote and the black vote let him down. They didn't turn out in large enough numbers to sway the election. Context. The time is ripe to add another voting bloc. Hispanics are ripe for conquest. Just like the black population in the 1960s and 1970s, Hispanics are now doing the nation's dirty work, and they're doing that work cheap. The Hispanics that I see work hard, and they're doing so to better their lot in life. There's nothing wrong with that. They are doing so with the hope that their hard work will benefit their children far more than it will benefit them in their own lifetimes. You know, that sounds an awful lot like my grandparents and the other new immigrants that appeared here a century ago. The hopes and the dreams of my grandparents have come to pass. Their unselfish, hard work has led to a better world for me and for you and for all of us. That is the essence of the American dream. Now, it seems to me that the leftists, on the other hand, have robbed a large portion of the black community of the dignity of self-determination. Out-of-control welfare programs have become reckless, shallow promises. They have become chains that enslave urban blacks to the Democratic voting bloc. Context. Cuidado con mis amigos de Hispanic. La serpiente en el Eden le está ofreciendo una manzana. Beware, my Hispanic friends. The snake in Eden is offering you an apple. Context. This whole affair has been orchestrated to position Obama and his comrades as your heroes. Just as importantly, this whole affair has been orchestrated to set up the Republicans as racist villains. This is the prime intent of this whole exercise. Context. This is just the next act in the drama entitled Fundamentally Changing America. We have 2 more lame duck years to endure. And you can bet the farm that there's going to be more executive actions and more theater on the way. Context. I fear that unless heroes appear soon, this play is destined to become a tragedy. Thanks for watching. See you again soon.